Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Yves Givel, and I'm going to quickly start introducing myself first. I have a couple of roles I'm playing at the moment. I am head of HR for a large hospitality company. I'm based in Switzerland. And at the same time, I'm also running a small company called the Mindfulness Company, where I sort of bring my own purpose to life in bringing mindfulness practices and mindful leadership into the world. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, although I would have preferred to actually be in Lagos in person last week. We're supposed to have the Search Inside Yourself workshop there last week, and with the current coronavirus crisis, of course, that didn't work out. But I'm really happy to be here and to talk to you a little bit more about resilience today. And I think resilience is one of these things we really need in these days. We're all going through very difficult times, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that in a moment. But I think everybody in some ways feels that the current situation has an impact on their life, on their well-being, on their emotional well-being, maybe even physical well-being. And hopefully the next half an hour will help you, give you a couple of tools you can work with in those difficult times. But before we start, I just quickly wanted to see where my participants actually are coming from. Maybe either put it in the chat, maybe just put in there where you're from, which country, city. London, great, you're now behind me. What else we have? Where else are you coming from? Not a London, not a London. Ah, a lot of people from London. Anybody from further away? Nigeria, great. Lagos, Nigeria. Anybody from a different country? Milton Keynes, okay, UK. We have Lagos again, Nigeria. There's Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth from Lagos. Nice to virtually meet you. Anybody from Switzerland other than me? Norfolk. Okay, great. Again, Nigeria, Lagos. Dorothy, welcome. Great to have you on the call. I see we have a lot of people on the call here, and I'm really excited to spend the next half an hour with you. Just to explain you, I think most of you in these, oh, Hamilton, Canada. Oh, wow. Not sure what time it is in Canada, but Atlanta, Georgia, I think you guys, it must be just around lunchtime, I guess, so just after lunch. So really thrilled to have you on the call as well. I'm sure most of you are working with Zoom. You know how the system works. And here we have a really interesting function. It's called a Q&A function. So if you click on this Q&A button, you can actually submit questions. And at the end, 1:34 p.m. Oh, great. So after lunch. So after the session, we're going to answer a couple of questions. So please feel free to shoot your questions through the Q&A. You won't be able to ask live questions. The system doesn't allow that at the moment. But please shoot your questions through. Either I will answer them as we go along, or I might keep some of them towards the end to really make sure we can go into all those questions over the next half hour or so. Some of you might ask you, what's the head of HR have to do with mindfulness? This is a theme that has been very important for me for many years. I've seen in my career a lot of situations where we grow people, we grow leaders, but quite often other than leadership skills, we don't give them any other skills to cope with the world that we're living in. And I always giggle sometimes when I've got a consultant coming to me and says, oh, Mr. Givel, I've got this amazing program to sell you that decreases the stress of people. You can't decrease stress. Stress, it's the world we're living in. What we can change is we can learn coping mechanisms on how to better navigate stress. And in my career, I learned this early on, that this is one of the areas that we do not provide enough help to our young leaders. And I've been very passionate about bringing this into our own company, into our hospitality company. and also very passionate about bringing it out into the world. That's what brought me here. I've been in this field very active for the last 6 to 7 years, and enjoy doing this alongside my main job for a long time now. So there's really two things happening at the moment for all of us. And on one side, it's the virus. It's COVID-19, the illness, and the big question on what can I do to actually develop my immune system? And on the other side, we've got the economy, right? And we live in this VUCA world, and VUCA is a word that was coined by the American military many years ago, and it stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I think the time we're living in at the moment, especially since the crisis started, is particularly VUCA. There's a lot of uncertainty. People are either working from home, it's home office, spending time in self-isolation, it's social distancing. People might be afraid of their jobs. We don't know what it means if we're getting furloughed, if our hours are being reduced. It's a horrible time at the moment. And I recently read an article from a German writer, and in German he quoted, wir sind nicht geschaffen für die Welt, die wir geschaffen haben. And in English it means, we as humans, we're not made for the world we've created. And today, this is particularly difficult. So we have our immune system, we have a VUCA world on one side. And what I want to talk about today is all about resilience, developing one of those most critical emotional intelligence skills that help us to, on one side, develop our well-being and, of course, enhance our immune system, and on the other side, create a better emotional balance in our lives. And resilience, if you look at the definition of resilience, and I've written this down here for me from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, resilience is an ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. It's an interesting definition, you know. And I think if I look at what's happening currently in the world, you know, it's definitely change. There's change. I mean, if I imagine, I had this amazing chat with Yenka about two months ago with Tunde and with Yenka, and we talked about the workshop in Lagos, and we're all excited, and I booked my ticket, and we booked the hotel, and I prepared for everything. And that was only 7 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. And now we're on a webinar. It's change. There's constant change at the moment. There's a lot of ambiguity out there. So resilience, dealing with this change, ambiguity, and maybe to a degree misfortune as well, is absolutely critical. And in what we wanted to run in Lagos last week was a program that's called Search Inside Yourself. Myself, I'm a certified Search Inside Yourself teacher. I got my certification about 3 years ago. It's a program that was developed at Google and that teaches people mindfulness skills. Basically, it uses mindfulness to develop emotional intelligence skills. And what I'm going to be talking about today, resilience, is one of those emotional intelligence skills. And in Search Inside Yourself, we really look at developing resilience on 3 different levels. And if I look at those 3 levels, they're fairly easy, but I actually wrote them down, and you'll be amazingly impressed by those professional slides I have prepared for you tonight. Because emotional resilience, we can develop it on 3 levels. Level 1 is inner calm. The second level is emotional resilience, and the third level is cognitive resilience. Now I'm going to talk about each one of those 3 levels in a little moment. So inner calm, what is inner calm? So we're living in a world where it's very difficult to downregulate our emotions. The uncertainty has an impact on the emotional well-being. It sort of raises emotions, which are physiological reactions to a certain stimulus. It could be what we see on TV. It could be something that happened. It's a thought. And inner calm is all about how can I actually come to a place where I can just stop everything. And for those of you who were in the webinar with Yinka last time, she was talking about breathing techniques. The breath. The breath is absolutely amazing. There's so many things we can do with our breath. And I'm sure many of us have been told when we were kids by our parents, when we got into a tantrum, got really angry, we were told, Jamal, just go and breathe 10 times, right? That's what the breath does. The breath helps us to calm down. The breath activates our parasympathetic nervous system. So if I'm talking about the first step, inner calm, it's all about sensing that moment when we get overwhelmed, getting overwhelmed with the situation, watching something on TV, all those numbers we see that nobody really knows what is true, what is not true, getting a phone call, whatever it is, breathing and creating this inner calm is the first step to resilience. And there's a variety of practices to do that. Now, usually all you have to do is just take a deep breath. You take a deep breath, breathing in and breathing out. And you can do this a couple of times. And all you do is you focus on your breath. And that activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system responsible to down-regulate stress in our body. So first step of resilience, inner calm, take a deep breath, maybe two, just to find that inner calm that cuts through all those anxiety, those thoughts that we have. In our field, in mindfulness, there's a saying where we say it's simple but not easy. And I think that's one of these things. Breathing is simple, but it's not easy. Actually having the discipline to just stop everything you do and breathe. The second one is emotional resilience. And there's so much going on in our head. And emotional resilience is all about actually accepting that we have all kinds of crazy thoughts going through our mind. Our default network in our brain keeps on telling us all those little stories. It's that little voice in our head that keeps on telling us all the bad things. This could happen. If you don't do that, that could happen. And tomorrow this could happen. And after tomorrow, that could happen. That's that inner voice we have. And building emotional resilience means, how can I not stop those thoughts? Maybe not stopping to listen to those voices. Thoughts will come and go. But how can I actually stay with a thought without getting carried away from it? And again, it's simple, but not easy. Because not sure if anybody knows how many thoughts we have. Why don't you quickly type into the chat how many thoughts you think we have a day? Anybody a guess? I have a couple of prizes here, but I can't really give them away because you guys are too far away. But anybody, any guess how many thoughts does a human being have a day? Don't see anything in the chat yet. Oh, Christina, not bad. Bolu, not bad. So we have everything from like 10,000, 35,000, 650,000. So research says that we have anything between 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Now imagine what happens if we keep on getting carried away by all those thoughts we have. And usually what happens, a lot of those thoughts are heavily loaded. And what does our brain do? This thought comes up and we grasp onto it. It's like, oh my God, it's my job, it's the world. And what we try to train with emotional resilience is, let's entertain the thoughts. Let's entertain them, but let's watch them. Let's observe them. And don't grab on to them. It's like watching a train passing by. You're standing on a platform, there's a train going by, and you just watch the train going, but you don't jump onto the train. So building emotional resilience is about experiencing your emotion, experiencing your thoughts, leaning into it without getting carried away by it. There's a beautiful word for that. It's called equanimity. And it's really this quality to just entertain your thoughts, entertain whatever comes up, and without getting carried away with it. And that's really what we're talking about when we talk about emotional resilience. So inner calm, taking a deep breath, calming our mind, And then emotional resilience, where we try to build equanimity. Third level is cognitive resilience. So if I come to a place where, okay, I'm sort of calm now, I'm experiencing whatever is going on in my body, it could be anxiety, it could be overwhelm, it could be anger to a degree, it could be frustration, but now I sort of have to find something to move on. Resilience is all about, remember the definition, it's like an ability to recover, to overcome. So the third step is cognitive resilience. And cognitive resilience is all about how do I explain to myself what's actually going on? And this is something that comes out of positive psychology, where they're talking about what they call explanatory style. And Martin Seligman, who was one of the initial founders of positive psychology, he says there's two ways to explain yourself a situation. And it's really easy. One of them is you explain yourself a situation in a very positive way. And then the second one is you explain yourself a situation in a negative way or in a pessimistic way. And the way this works is usually a pessimist, whatever happens in the world, it happens to them, everything becomes very personal. Oh, I've been put on furlough. That's because of me. You know, I'm a failure. I'm not doing well. That's why I've been put on unpaid leave. I'm on furlough. I might get sick. So the pessimist takes things very, very personal. The pessimist also makes these things very permanent. You know, I'm never going to get a job again. We're never going to get out of this crisis. And the pessimist believes that whatever happens to them is very pervasive throughout their life. So one single incident can actually absolutely influence their entire lives. The optimist, on the other side, explains him or herself situations very differently. The optimist says, you know, this is not personal. You know, things happen, it's situational, and it's not necessarily because of me. You know, I can be, maybe something happens in one part of my life, but this is very situational, that's really happening in that moment. The optimist also sees any setbacks as temporary. Whatever happens at the moment, whatever problems we have, this is very temporary. It happens now. Oh, this is a very good comment here. A pessimist usually blames destiny for all wrongs. Absolutely, you know. But the optimist also sees an opportunity. They see that, fine, things can happen, but this is not pervasive throughout my life. It happens maybe here, something happens at work, maybe something happens here with a friend, but it's not pervasive throughout my life. So again, Martin Seligman says, we all have a natural explanatory style. And that explanatory style is really either it's naturally optimistic or naturally pessimistic. So let me ask again here through the chat quickly. What do you think? If something happens, what is our initial reaction? Are more people naturally optimistic or more people maybe more naturally pessimistic? Let's get some votes here. Anybody wants to type in? What do you think in general, people? Something happens, you know, pessimistic, pessimistic. Somebody that's optimistic, could be more, probably more pessimistic, one optimistic, pessimistic. Yeah, and I think we all have our natural tendencies, and I think it also depends the way we wire, which means our personality, but we all have a certain negativity bias. And usually if something happens, quite often the first thoughts that come in our heads, quite often they're pessimistic. And there's a bit of work that has to be done to actually move this into a more optimistic explanatory style. But in general, as human beings, we have a negativity bias. I have, wow, this is amazing. I've got 60 participants here on the call. Now, if I would send out a survey afterwards and ask everybody, did you enjoy the session or you didn't enjoy the session? So I could have 59 people saying, yeah, it was great, I loved it. And one person says, Yves, that was crap. You know, well, guess how I'm going to feel. I'm going to be sort of good for the 59, but I'm going to be absolutely annoyed about the one person, right? Because it's our negativity bias. That's the way we have survived for thousands of years. A couple of thousands of years ago, we had to have this negativity bias where the emotional part of our brain is scanning the environment and tells us what kind of dangers are out there. And this negativity bias still exists in us today. But what awareness does, or mindfulness does, is it makes you aware that we potentially have a negativity bias. So if something happens, difficult situation, anxiety, uncertainty, overwhelm, let's be aware that our brain will start rattling down the pessimistic expert style first, and probably needs to be pushed over into a more optimistic explanatory style, explaining ourselves, okay, this is not personal. Whatever happens at the moment is not personal. Whatever happens at the moment is temporary, it's not permanent. And whatever happens at the moment applies not to all circumstances in life, which is not pervasive. So these are really the three levels of resilience that we're training. Inner calm, which is really about finding a way to sort of just breathe through it and down-regulate our emotions. Our breath is fantastic for that. Emotional resilience, where we can find this equanimity, where we can experience thoughts and emotions and feelings without getting carried away by them. And then the third level, which is cognitive resilience, which is really all about how do I explain situations to myself, either optimistic or pessimistic. And again, be aware of your negativity bias. Your brain will rattle down that pessimistic way. Be aware of it and try to explain yourself situations in a more optimistic way. And there's a lot of practices that we can use, and sometimes it's great when we have a bit of time and you sort of think, okay, so how am I going to do that? I'm sitting there and I'm calming my mind, and okay, now I'm breathing and try to calm my emotions and feeling my emotions, and am I now pessimistic, optimistic? Now, we don't always have time for that. And what we also teach very often in Search Inside Yourself is that sometimes you need a little medication in the moment. You need a little practice in the moment, which we also call a micro practice. And I'm going to offer you a very, very simple micro practice. And again, I prepared a very sophisticated slide for you. And this here works literally in one breath, you know. And if you feel overwhelmed for a situation, you breathe in and you tell yourself, I did my best. And you breathe out and you say, and I let go of the rest. This is a very, very simple but powerful micro practice. It can be used at any given moment. You feel overwhelmed, you feel anxious, you feel that the world is going under. There's no end, there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and your mind starts racing. And to try to get out of that, very simple micro practice. Breathing in, I did my best. Breathing out, let go of the rest. Very simple, little micro practice. And with that, I want to have a look here what kind of questions have come through. And please feel free if you have any questions to what I was talking about around developing resilience, the micro practice. But I look at the first question here. That is from Bukola, and please apologies for my pronunciation of the names. Actually, nobody can pronounce my name either. When I went to the States, I lived for 4 years in Chicago. They said, Yves, nobody can pronounce your name. We're going to rename you to Steve. So my Starbucks name was Steve. So here for Bukola, are there other qualities besides optimism that would help someone to be resilient? I think it's also, I'm always talking about healthy choices. And I think if people can start looking after their well-being overall, this is what strengthens our resilience as well. And there's a number of interesting frameworks you can use. In my company, we use a framework that's called Feel, Fuel, and Function. Feel is all about what kind of practice I can use to help with my emotional balance. Fuel is all about what is it, what I'm eating and drinking, because at the end of the day, we are what we eat. And function is all about movement and exercise. So it's a very holistic well-being framework that helps us to look after our overall well-being, which is an amazing starting point to build resilience. If you feel good with yourself and you're building this awareness and emotional balance, that's a fantastic tool to further develop your resilience. So I think overall well-being, change our behaviors, the way we work. Oh, this is actually funny. This is an acronym. It's called BURN. BURN, like the Swiss capital, BERN. And in BURN, they talk about behavior, they talk about exercise, they talk about relaxation and nutrition. It's another way to look after your holistic well-being. These are the kind of things that I would recommend for resilience. I have Kate who asks, when you have so much emotions passing through your mind, how do you decide or identify the one to concentrate on? Oh, I love these questions, Kate. This is great. If you think about emotion, maybe I ask this to Kate, if you feel overwhelmed, or if you feel anxious, or if you feel angry, where do you feel it? Do you truly feel it in your head, or do you feel it in your body? You feel it in our chest, you feel it in our throat, you feel it in our face. Emotions are physiological. Emotions are not just in our head. And we usually distinguish between thoughts, feelings, emotions, but emotions are actually physiological. And emotions are important. And in Search Inside Yourself, we talk a lot about emotions because it's all about emotional intelligence, because emotions give us a lot of important information. And it's all about experiencing the emotions, being able to tune into the emotions, being able to maybe better describe the emotions, because there's a difference between frustration, anxiety, anger. So this is important to actually being able to experience emotions, and you don't have to choose. There's no need to choose. It's all about experiencing emotions as they come up and letting them go. That's what emotional intelligence does. But it's a great question. I've got Pelumi watching from Lagos, Nigeria. Great. Since everything is on hold and we don't even know when we are going to go back to work, what can I do to keep calm? What else can be done to make a living? I can probably answer part of this question. It's very difficult to answer the other one. There's a saying that says, in every crisis, there's an opportunity. And I look around myself, I see a lot of people who are developing amazing opportunities in terms of, I have a friend of mine who started a food home delivery, which is absolutely amazing. She's a fantastic cook and she does food home delivery. I've seen other people that start doing webinars. But to your question of what can I do to keep calm? And I'm a big believer in mindfulness and in practicing mindfulness, different practices that help us in developing awareness and inner calm. These are practices that help us, that we do through focused attention, using the breath as our focus, or we do it through open awareness, or we do compassion practices. So for me, mindfulness is a very helpful skill in those difficult times. And it's something that can be used and developed very, very easily. You can download an app. There's a number of apps out there, whether it's Headspace or Calm or whatever it is, that help you just to give you a kickstart on how to actually practice some of this. And then it's like exercise. The more you exercise, the better you're gonna get at it. And again, what can I do to keep calm? I think the breath is a very valuable tool. I have Toby. How does one develop resilience, capacity, and skills within marginalized populations, such as the deaf, the disabled, and others? That's a great question, and I'm not really a specialist in that area, and I think there's various people that teach this. I mean, I teach yoga as well, which is another great practice to help us calming our minds, and at the same time creates this balance between body and mind. I have a friend of mine who teaches yoga to deaf people, to handicapped people. It's an amazing way to teach people this balance of body and mind and how to still the mind in certain postures. That's just one of the examples I can think about. There is mindfulness training as well for deaf people. There's a number of ways that this can be practiced and read. It's also very valuable for kids. There's a lot of materials out there to teach those skills to children, because if you look around us, in many countries, schools are closed. I'm not sure how it is in Nigeria, some parts of the UK, but I know here in Switzerland, schools are closed, kids are at home, and this is not easy. And spending time, 24 hours with the kids not being to go out, play with their friends, go out to a nightclub, a restaurant, this is difficult these times. So actually teaching some of those resilience skills to kids is also very, very valuable. I have another one here whose name is Anonymous Attendee. How to build resilience to stress during COVID-19. I think COVID-19, like I said, I think it evokes different emotions in people. Some emotions, it's a fear of getting sick. There's a lot of data out there that might be misleading for some people. Somebody might think, okay, I'm in a risk group, so I could get sick, and how can I strengthen my immunity system? Other people say, well, COVID-19 impacted my job. So I think this crisis evokes a lot of different emotions. And the 3 steps to resilience can really help us in addressing all of those topics. It sort of helps us just to more skillfully navigate those difficult emotions. Here is, how can I build and maintain resilience at home and at work? I don't think there's a difference. I think home and work resilience is the same thing. And it's like anything. You go to the gym, if you go regularly to the gym, you're going to be able to run when you need to run. And it's the same thing with practicing resilience. If you practice resilience over and over and over again, you then can also use it when it gets really tough, when the times get tougher. So again, the 3 levels of training resilience: being able to calm your mind, being able to observe your thoughts and experience your emotions, and watching your explanatory styles, that's an exercise by itself. And by continuous practice, you actually become more proficient. You're able to use it when you truly need it, when those emotions really start to overtake. Oh, good question. How can I handle rejection? Yeah, I think rejection evokes, again, emotions. And at the end of the day, it's all about emotion management. And rejection can raise emotions of, it can be fear, anxiety, frustration, pain, anger. There's a lot of those emotions that come up with rejection. And again, you look at our framework, it's all about inner calm. It's all about stopping that little voice. It's about inner calm. It's about experiencing the emotion that comes up. You've been rejected. This is tough. This is really tough. And you might not be the only one. Many people have been rejected. But lean into that emotion and let your body feel that emotion, and then look at the explanatory style. And you're going to start on the pessimistic way. This is personal, it's because of me, this is going to be for all my life, it's across everything I do. So even that scenario, using those 3 levels can be very helpful. Quite a lot of questions coming in here. How can I build character in teenage students? There's another expression in German, it's called Kinderstube. And it's all about, teach your kids ethics and values, because that builds good characters, right? And I'm not a specialist in education, but that would just be my take on it. It's all about teaching values and ethics. I think that goes a long way on character building. Here we have, how can I build my resilience to pressure and stress from work or home? I think this we have answered. Where does religion or spirituality stop and mindfulness start? Ah, I love that question. Not sure I should be answering it because everybody's going to have a different opinion on it. But I think this all exists next to each other, right? I think um, you have religion, you have spirituality. Some people make religion part of their spirituality. Some people have spirituality without any religion. Mindfulness is none of that. Mindfulness is a practice, right? Mindfulness is all about developing qualities to become more aware. It's about it's about practices to develop awareness of what's going on in our mind, in our body, in our environment, with an attitude of curiosity and kindness. That's what mindfulness is all about. So it's a practice, it's exercise that helps us in cultivating certain qualities. So maybe sometimes there is fusion because some of those practices are used to help people achieve a certain spirituality. It could also be if you think about yoga and yoga philosophy, or you think about Buddhist spirituality, or you think about religions. A lot of those mindfulness practices are also used in different religions in one way or another. But mindfulness is secular, it is not religious, it's not spiritual, but there is a certain fusion because those practices are used in a variety of different areas. Always a difficult question to answer. Lola, how can you teach teenagers how to be mindful? What's the best starting point for opinionated teenagers? Are there teenagers that are not opinionated? I think they all are, right? Again, there's a variety of ways how to do it. So I'm actually teaching Search Inside Yourself, the program within my own company as well. I just launched an online program last week where I'm running 6 2-hour workshops over a period of 4 weeks. And after each session, I give people a couple of practices to do. And this morning in my session, somebody says, I did some of those practices and I asked my daughter to sit with me and to practice with me. And then somebody else in the group says, oh, that's really nice, but, I've got a teenage son and he would never sit down with me. I'm sure your daughter is very young. And the lady says, yeah, she's very young. She's 17. So again, I think it has to be genuine and you can't force this onto something. I think it's all about experiencing it. First time I experienced mindfulness was about 7-8 years ago. And the moment I experienced it and I experienced the benefit, I was hooked. So I had the experience and I wanted to know more about it, but became curious. So I think my recommendation is let them experience it, discuss what it brings to them, how they experience it, and see if you can foster some curiosity to learn more about it. How does one cope with remaining optimistic if one is living in a house or an area with many negative people? Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in energy. There are certain places of energy in the world. They say that an average human being has about 8 to 9,000 bovis, they call it. That's the energy measurement. And then you've got some really energy loaded places that have 12, 14,000. You go into the Himalayas, the energy level is like 40,000. But there are also people that are well below. You have people, they might be on 6,000. And you spend time with them and they literally drain energy. And I think the first thing you have to apply is empathy. I think non-judgmental empathy and compassion. And there are just some people that might drain some of your energy. They might be more negative. But, my wife always says every human being has a story. And whether somebody is negative or drains energy, everybody has a story. And that always builds a really nice starting point for empathy and compassion. And once you approach a situation or negative people with empathy and compassion, you'll see, you can feel the difference on how you can deal with it and who you might even be able to help them. What do we have here? Are there frameworks to help create a culture of mindfulness, especially during a period of change? But Roland, that's a great question, but I think that would take me an hour to talk about that. Yes, there are frameworks. Search Inside Yourself itself is one of them. I think if you want to know more about it, then definitely reach out to us and maybe attend one of the Search Inside Yourself workshops, because it's probably the best framework to create a culture of mindfulness. And Joshua Otunji here. How can mindfulness be used to impact government and governance? These questions are really great. So in the UK, they actually launched the UK Mindfulness Initiative, where they analyzed how they could use mindfulness to improve certain areas of the government. And if I remember well, they looked at schools. How could we actually bring mindfulness into preschool and primary schools? The second area they looked at was medical system, healthcare, how they could bring mindfulness into healthcare. On one side, actually helping healthcare workers to cope with the demands they have. And if I look around today, where this is really exponential, this is even more important. And then the third area was the business. And there was a lot of work done in the UK, and you can Google it. UK Mindfulness, or Mindful Nation UK it was called. Definitely worth looking this up. I'm well over my time here, and I just quickly wanted to link forward to the next session. There will be another webinar happening on the 28th of April at 4 p.m. BST, British Standard Time. And the webinar will be hosted by my good friend Laurie Cameron, who was actually teaching the Search Inside Yourself program, the first one I attended about 3-4 years ago. And she's actually going to talk about something I just mentioned before. She's going to talk about empathy and compassion, and in particular, compassionate leadership. How you can use empathy and compassion in leadership, which is probably the most important leadership competency that we need post-COVID-19. And with that, from my side, a big thank you to all of you. This feels a little bit like social distancing because I can't see you, but I really love the questions you asked. I can feel the energy of this group, and I wish I could personally meet you one of those days. All the best. I wish you good health. Bring some healthy choices in your life. It will help you to build your immune system, to build resilience. Best of luck, be healthy, and I'm looking forward to maybe one day connecting again with you. Thank you, good luck, bye-bye.